On yesterday's episode, we talked a lot about how the Chicago Bears can buck the expectations, both good and bad, for the offense and defense. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the pressure that's building for this team and why there are a number of players that are going to step up for the Bears quite considerably this year. We're going to look at Austin Booker, Cole Kmet, Neville Gallimore, and Zavion Thomas, and why their roles for the Chicago Bears make so much importance on both sides of the ball. We're also going to talk about Rome Odunze and why a breakout could be loading up for him in year 3, and Caleb Williams talks a little bit about how the haters, he sees it all. But is it bulletin board material? We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all. So I got 4 players that I think, depending on what they do in 2026, it can make a huge difference in how much the Chicago Bears step up next year. Now, some of these names are obvious. Some of them are less obvious and not as expected because they're new to the team. But let's go ahead and get into it, right? So I want to look at these 4 players and why their roles are so important for the Bears and why a breakout for them could really make a determining factor for this team. And number 1, it's Austin Booker. I don't think I need to belabor the point here too much in regards to Austin Booker. Like, Austin Booker last year had 4.5 sacks in 10 games. Some of those games he was not healthy in, right? And with Dayo Odeyingbo already showing and proving he's not a reliable starter, on top of that, the Bears already talked about moving him more towards the inside during the season. If Austin Booker, like the Bears made a huge bet and a sign of confidence in Austin Booker when you look at it. Part of the reason the Bears did not feel like they had to go out and make the big swing move this year with the edge position is because they wanted to take that time to evaluate Austin Booker and how well he's going to fit as a long-term mate with Montez Sweat. And it puts a lot of pressure on Austin Booker. The Bears' pass rush was god-awful last year. And even though when you take his performance, if you extrapolate that over a full 17-game season, he's like 8.5, 9 sacks, something like that, which would be a really solid production number. But I'm going to say this, now that you're coming into the season with the expectation to be a starter, you're going to need to do even more than that. You know, people have said like they want to see 10 sacks from Austin Booker, 12 from Montez Sweat. And I can't blame you. If you're able to get 22 sacks from them alone, it goes a long way in what you're doing. You're still going to need the 6 or 7 from Javon Dexter in the interior, stuff like that, and spread it out. But Austin Booker sits in a spot where, right or wrong, right, whatever we can say, if it's too much on him, if it's not enough on him, whatever you want to say, is that the coaching staff and Ryan Poles, through his decisions and what he's done with the roster, has put a lot of eyes on what Austin Booker does this season. Now, when Austin Booker was drafted, he was a guy that was a little bit undersized. Still had to develop some, but had some of those advanced moves that you look at. And then last season, coming into the preseason, he looked like a player that was going to make a quite considerable leap. And then the injuries happened. And then, it never really quite got there. But so Austin Booker becomes so important to what the Chicago Bears can do this year, because if you get a season from Booker where it looks like he is a starting caliber edge, you can bet on being your starter day in and day out, it changes so much of the complexity here for the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm not going to go into stat expectations or anything like that. I do think the 8 to 10 sacks is a good range for him to be in. But I think overall, it's the consistency, right? Austin Booker has to keep defenses honest enough to keep them from double-teaming Montez Sweat and make them think about it. Now, that's on everybody. That's on Javon. That's on all the other edges other than Montez. But that's a big, important role on this defensive line. And Austin Booker is the guy that's there ready to take over the mantle of that. So we'll see. I have a lot of faith in Austin. Austin Booker this season is going to do one of a couple of things. He's either going to prove that he can be a day in and day out starter and solve something for you that you don't have to worry about next year, and then you're looking at better backup support, or he's going to prove that he's a solid defensive end and a rotational defensive end, maybe your swing end coming off the bench, but maybe not somebody you want to trust to be your starter every day. And that's going to be the story of this season for Austin Booker. What side of that does he fall on? And if he does fall on the side where you now can trust him in year 3 to be a starter every single day, That's nothing but money for the Chicago Bears, so a hugely important role that Austin Booker has. Next up, Cole Kmet. I know that a lot of Bears fans are ready to sell off Cole Kmet. They're ready to trade Cole Kmet. The writing's on the wall. They're ready to get him out of there. They want to trade him for an edge. They want to do all that. And I'm here to say this. I understand it. I understand where you're coming from with that, especially with Sam Roush and the fact that Sam Roush and Cole Kmet have a lot of overlapping skill sets. But at least now, for this season, right, up until the trade deadline, if they decide to do something, but I do think they're going to give it for this full season, you're going to have Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland, and Sam Roush all on the same team. And what Cole Kmet is able to do this year is going to be hugely important. This is a guy that only has not played all 17 games twice in his NFL career that dates back to 2020, right? There he played 16 games, and he played 16 last year. This is a guy that's always on the football field. He's always there. And his ability to as a blocker and a pass catcher is going to be really important in the 12 and 13-man personnel that we're going to go to now. And how well Cole Kmet plays is going to free up Colston Loveland to put in that slot a little bit more, and then you're bringing in Sam Roush as the other tight end in those specific sets. And I get it. Like Cole Kmet is 2 years removed from his breakout season of 719 yards and 6 touchdowns. But then he in 2024, still 4 touchdowns on 474 yards. Last year, 347 yards with 2 touchdowns. So the production is going down because his role has changed. But I think also what Cole Kmet does as a blocker can be something that's easily overlooked, and how his blocking in the run game has been so important for the Chicago Bears in that side of the game also to step up and be consistent for the Chicago Bears. So listen, when you look at it, like look at Cole Kmet's game-tying touchdown in the playoffs last year against the Rams, right? Look at that type of stuff. Like Cole Kmet is still a player that still can bring a lot for this team. And I do think this, like, and you know, you don't want to bet on injury or anything like that, but like let's not frame it around injury. Let's frame it as this: with the depth that the Chicago Bears have at the tight end position, you can keep everybody healthy and you can build everybody up. And you can go into the playoffs with a tight end personnel and a tight end set that not a lot of teams are going to have, right? So that's what you're going to do. Ben Johnson is still figuring out how to use all the tight ends. That's what we're going to figure out in the offseason. But I do think Cole Kmet is going to have better numbers than last year because the balance is going to be better. And in some of those blocking situations, you are going to have Sam Roush, and you're going to be able to go to Cole Kmet on. So I think that's going to be a huge part for this Bears team as well. The next player, a backup in Neville Gallimore. Now, Gallimore is a player that I think when you look at the defensive line, right, the interior defensive linemen struggled last season. Javon Dexter struggled with consistency again, even though his overall numbers were solid. Javon Dexter was another guy. Grady Jarrett was very inconsistent last year with his injury, right? And so when you look at that, right, and how having Gallimore, he was one of 3 defensive tackles that we signed in free agency, but he was the one that got the 2-year deal. So they're expecting him to have a big step up this year and to fill that that role that was formerly filled by Andrew Billings, right? So, you know, you got guys in Grady Jarrett and Javon. You need to see those guys play better as well. But Neville Gallimore, as that first guy off the bench in that defensive tackle rotation, he's going to be a huge important factor for what this Bears team can do, especially in the run game, especially with that being Javon Dexter. One of his weakest spots is that run game part of it. Neville Gallimore is going to come in here with that big body, that 307 pounds, being 6'2". He had 3.5 sacks last year while playing all 17 games. The sack number, I'm not worried about. He has 7.5 sacks over his career. So, almost half of his sacks came just from last year. I'm not even necessarily just looking at that, just the consistency, the floor raising that he can do for this team. That's something that's going to be really important for us next year and something that we have to look at and ask, how do we continue to build with that? And Neville Gallimore is going to have a major. He has pressure to justify that he's a key rotational piece for this Bears team and not just another person on that defensive line that we're going to, judge harshly, because that's what we do with the defensive line. We're Chicago Bears fans. We deserve and we expect the best. So there you go on that one. And then the last player that I do think, and again, I'm not saying that this guy's going to be wide receiver 3. I'm not saying that he's going to get the most snaps, but Zavion Thomas, while his role is still being defined, right? I'm going to say this. Let's just take the speed part out of it, right? But having the balance that we have in our wide receiver 3 room, right? Jahade Walker, Khalif Raymond, Zavion Thomas. All those guys have different skill sets to varying different degrees, but Zavion being somebody that not just is going to impact the offense, you're also looking at him as a kick and punt returner, right? You're also looking at him in the run game. If Zavion Thomas ends up being that gadget player that Yeah, it was still a primary wide receiver, but he ends up being that player that Ben Johnson just feels like it changes the dynamic of a game, right? Changes the complexity of a game. That's really what Zavion Thomas needs to do in this year is make the most out of the snaps and the opportunity that he gets. He's going to be a key contributor on special teams. He's going to be a weapon on the offensive side of the ball, both in the run game and in the pass game. That dynamic can create so much flexibility for everything else that you do on the field. I'm not trying to put that all on Zavion Thomas. A lot falls down on Ben Johnson and how he schemes it, but it is an important part of this that could completely change how defenses need to prepare for us and to set up their secondary. That speed makes a huge difference, but it's not just the fact Velus Jones had speed. Zavion Thomas, when he gets the ball, actually does stuff. He doesn't drop the ball as much as Velus Jones either. Zavion has a real big opportunity here as a rookie to make an impact for a Bears team. It's not going to come through a lot of snaps. It's not going to come through a lot of targets, but what he can make of the most of the opportunities that he gets, if he does that, it could really break this team open. So let's see what happens there. But let's move on from players that I have expectations to do some things with, right? And that could help the Bears quite a bit. Let's talk about one of the key people. Now, you guys know, I say this about Bears fans all the time. Bears fans are quick to turn on players. Rome Odunze started off the season on fire. He got hurt. He was hurt for 7 weeks before he missed a game and then came back and played. And Bears fans now act like Rome Odunze is some trash. He's not. And I think that Rome, one thing we do too is that if you left it to Bears fans, we would only have one talented player at every position, because the moment that somebody else shows talent, Bears a portion of Bears fans be ready to trade another player in that position. Like even my boy Darius bringing up possibly trading. Like, what are we talking about, bro? What are we talking about? But there are some key areas where Rome definitely needs to improve at, right? And I'll say this. While Odunze, in the 14 games that he played, he had 99 targets at 7.1 per game. He caught 48 passes for 15.6 yards per reception as well, and 6 touchdowns, right? And of course, DJ Moore leaving puts a bigger role on that. But I think one of the things that we need to work on, and one of the things that isn't as always as obvious, right, is that the connection of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, it hasn't led to the best efficiency yet. Odunze had 99 targets, but he caught less than 48% of those passes. Now, that's not all on Rome Odunze's fault, right? He accounted for only 5 drop passes over those 99 targets. So this is why when I bring up Caleb Williams' completion percentage, everybody's like, well, your wide receivers don't need to drop passes. It's not just the wide receivers. 99 targets, 5 of those being drops by Rome. Now, some of those were key drops that could have been touchdowns for sure, and that stands out in the mind of players. But again, if you have less than 50% completion percentage to a wide receiver and they only drop 5 passes, that also goes to your quarterback some as well, right? So the chemistry between Caleb and Rome has to improve this year. Rome's average depth of target last year was 7th highest among wide receivers with at least 40 targets. That's really that's solid numbers, right? And so there are a lot of those that he should have caught that, or the accuracy, whatever it is. You got to improve on that one. And that has to be something that Ben Johnson definitely invests in this offseason, is getting the chemistry between Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams together. Because I tell you what, if Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams played higher efficiency ball, right, you're looking at about 70 catches, 1,300 yards, and double-digit touchdowns for Rome Odunze with that. So, it's up to Ben Johnson to be the creative offensive mind that he is, to find a way to get that all working together. And if you can get that, like for last year, for example, those numbers that we just talked about, 70 catches, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns would have been the 7th ranked wide receiver in football. That's a potential that Rome has. And that's why you're not going to get everything that's on the board. You're not going to get everything potentially. That's why I didn't go to, having all the passes, right? But it comes down to this, like when we talked about like yesterday's episode, the talent that's on this offense is legitimate. It has efficiency. And when we talk about Caleb Williams, completion percentage, it's about overall efficiency from the off. You can look at that as an indication of the efficient offense overall. If the Bears play a much more efficient offense this season, you aren't just talking about an offense that's good. You're talking about an offense that could be truly great, a great offense. And that's why efficiency has to be the name of the game. The better understanding of the system, another year of chemistry, hopefully better health. All these things play part into that. If you get that done, then the possibilities are endless here. And I really do mean that. The possibilities are truly endless here for the Chicago Bears if you just become a more efficient offense. We don't need to do the game, but and by efficient as well, more consistent, right? More offense, more consistently throughout the full 4 quarters. You get that, man. We're talking about elite category territory for the Chicago Bears. So, I just wanted to point that out because, with Rome and Caleb and the balance there, getting that efficiency together is going to be hugely and tantamount to the Chicago Bears offense this year. And let's see if the Bears can go out and get it. I think they can, but let's see. But all right, let's move on from that to Jaylon Johnson. Jaylon Johnson, who we've heard, he's gone through the offseason programs. We hear that he's back fully healthy. That's big for the Chicago Bears. And he was interviewed by CHGO where he said this: "I'm just looking forward to the season and really reminding a lot of people who I am. And I'm one of the best guys to play this game. So I'm just looking forward to that opportunity." The thing that I love the most, and I know this, I say this a lot, and you're going to hear it multiple times when you've listened to this show. I love being able to hold players accountable to what they say about themselves. We can talk about our expectations all day, but to me, it adds a different level of accountability when a player says, "Hey, this season, I want to remind people I'm one of the best to play this game, period." That's a tall statement to make, right? And I love being able to hold people to that because you know why? If Jaylon Johnson's fully healthy, I almost have no doubts that he will do that. And that says something to me a lot about the skill level that he has there, because if Jaylon Johnson is fully healthy, you don't want a healthy Jaylon Johnson to be a problem for you if you're an opposing offense. And so 7 games played last year for Jaylon Johnson, the lowest of his NFL career. The lowest before that was 11 games played. And so the impact wasn't there. And again, much like with Rome Odunze, there are a lot of Bears fans now that have turned on Jay, but they were already against Jaylon. Like, I remember the year before he got his contract extension, people were like, well, you can't be a shutdown receiver if you don't get interceptions. Like, do you understand what shutdown means? But with that, and then Jaylon Johnson responded to that with having 4 interceptions in a year. So, like, Jaylon is a player that he's capable of so much. He's capable of making so much easy, not just on your defensive line and the other defensive backs, but your team overall, because Jaylon Johnson is truly healthy, a shutdown cornerback. And you don't have a lot of those in the NFL, right? Guys that can truly shut down a side of the field. And now that we potentially added another guy that has the potential to be that in Malik Muhammad, we got to see how much of that potential is actually realized. This Bears defense can take another step. That's why in yesterday's episode, we talked about how, like, the Bears defense could be a lot better than people are giving it credit for. Now, could be, right? I'm not willing to say it will be yet, because things that can happen in theory don't always come to fruition in real life. So it's up to the Bears to show that they can do that day in and day out in real life. But this is a team that, again, the defense, it has the makings of a defense that can improve. We're not going to be the 25th ranked defense if we have better health in our secondary. With the additions of Kobe Bryant and also Dylan Thieneman, the linebackers adding Devin Bush, having Keyshawn Elliott, who I think is going to make a big impact, DeMarco Jackson, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn. We got guys. Don't let Ruben Hippolyte actually find a way to turn that speed into functional on-field production. We got guys. And so now it comes down to showing it. And Jaylon, as a leader of this Chicago Bears team, a lot's on him to show it from day one. Stay healthy, stay out there on the field, which, again, he's played more games than he has not. Let's go out there and get it done, because Jaylon, healthy and motivated Jaylon Johnson, motivated Jaylon Johnson is different, because he's proven it, right? It's not like Dio just saying words. He has proven it. So we're going to see what happens with Jaylon Johnson this year, but he sent a loud message that I hope that he backs it up. That's all I can say in regards to that one. All right, let's get into this last thing from Caleb. We got a quote from Caleb Williams that I want to read here in regards to him. He says this: "You cannot see them." In regards, he was asked about the haters, right? And that the hate that comes with being a high-profile NFL player. He said this: "You can't not see them." So all the people that say that they don't hear haters are liars. Not going to say any names on here, but there are times when I go back and I listen. There's reporters and there's announcers, or whatever you want to call them, that I remember. And sometimes I shake their hand a little bit harder when I see them in person. Y'all know I'm petty. Y'all know I'm a petty person, right? And I love that when somebody takes the doubt and the stuff around them and they use that as a motivating factor. And you're right. Like, we live in a world now where everything's seeable. Like, if you get on, unless you're a player that does not get on social media, you're going to see the hate. You're going to see the doubt from the fans. You're going to see the doubt from the media. You're going to see all of that. And you can choose to internalize that and then use that as motivation, or you can choose to internalize it and let it get in your head and let you make it doubt yourself. We don't want people that let the media make them doubt themselves. We want people that see what the stupid shit that the media and some fans say and then say, all right, bet, I'm going to see you about that. And that's the most important thing here. Caleb Williams doesn't need to go out there and try to prove anybody wrong. Caleb Williams needs to go out there and be the best version of himself, which is going to naturally prove people wrong, right? And that's all that Caleb has to do this season. Like we talked about at the beginning, better efficiency. You get a better efficient Caleb Williams this year, you're going to get a better production, and you're going to get a truly elite offense this year when it all comes down to that, because I truly believe that's what this team has the capability of doing. You just got to see if they're going to go out and do it, and if they can do it consistently. And if they do, then we already know what the future is going to hold for this team. This team, I'm saying this now. I'm saying it. I'm going to say it. This team can still be a Super Bowl contender this year. It's all about how we prepare, how we execute, and how healthy we can stay. And we'll see what the team does with that one. But now I want to hear from you guys in regards to who do you think could be a big X factor for this team this year? Do you think Austin Booker is going to actually break out as a pass rusher this year? Do you think that's possible? And do you think Zavion Thomas is going to become a real weapon for this Bears team? Do you think Jaylon Johnson gets back to the Pro Bowl? And Caleb Williams, him being honest about hearing the critics, how does that make you feel? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a live stream. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, and that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.